Hey, good morning guys. Welcome to another day. Today, we're going to talk about equality. Equality is equal. Are things equal? Equality is a very strange concept. I think we know what it means. We think we know what it means. If you ask any kid as they're growing up, if they understand, did you get an equal portion as your brother on your dessert? Did you get equal time at recess? And certain things we think are just about the same. As if it's same means equal. So, for example, we have these numbers here. 3, 4, and 5, and 2, 1, and 9. The sums are equal. They both add up to 9, 10, 11, 12, right? 12 and 9, 10, 11, 12. So it's equal, right? But I don't know, the 3 is a little more towards the top, the 9 is a little more towards the bottom. There are differences. As long as we're putting together something that started out different, there are going to be differences. We try to make everything equal. Equal is a goal. Equal is an ideal. It is something that we strive for because we believe in the principles of equality, especially when it comes to the equality of people. So right now, I want all of you to have equal access to education. I want that to be the case. I always want that to be the case. This year is particularly difficult though, because I know we don't have all equal access to education. Do you know how I prepared for this lesson? I went around the house. I grabbed books that had anything about Supreme Court cases on it. I read books. I looked on internet websites. I read the textbook. I went through looking for props, things that would help me to explain certain ideas. I grabbed technology that I had. I'm very fortunate that I have a number of things in my house that serve this purpose. Not everybody has that. I know that. I know if I said everybody go out and grab a constitutional law book off of your shelf, you probably don't have that in your house. I'm glad that I do. But not everyone gets equal access because we don't have the same resources. Now, if we're in the setting of the school, the classroom, again, we try there to give equal access, but if I try to put everybody in the same seat, you guys are going to get very crowded and cranky. So even access to education in the classroom gets hampered by the fact that I just simply can't give everything completely equally to everybody. We get close, we approach it, and if there is a problem where somebody needs something more, then we give them something more to help them. But that's not equal, right? We're working towards it, but it's not equal. This goal, this ideal, this equality that we're looking at is something that comes into play as we're working on giving equal rights to African Americans. The 13th Amendment ended slavery. The 14th Amendment ensured that you're going to have equal protection under the law. Everybody who is born here is a citizen, and you're going to be protected for life, for liberty, for your not your pursuit of happiness, but your property. Pursuit of happiness is a tricky one. They considered that, but that's a tough one to guarantee. So anyway, so today's lesson is the concept of separate but equal, looking at the case of Plessy versus Ferguson. Your book has about a paragraph on it, but Supreme Court cases are hugely important because they set the groundwork for how laws are enacted. They inspire new laws to be put into place. And as one of the 3 branches of government, it is one of the strongest portions of our government. All right. Equal Protection Clause. Okay, Equal Protection Clause is something you'll hear, and you'll hear this for you'll hear this for years. Equal Protection Clause is the part of the Second Amendment, or part of the 15th Amendment, 14th Amendment. The Equal Protection Clause is the part of the 14th Amendment that says that you have equal protection under the law. It's actually the second sentence of of that amendment. It says, no state shall, and then some other words, deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. That means that everyone gets equal protection. This was tested, the 1896 Supreme Court case of Plessy versus Ferguson. So there was a black man, Homer Plessy. He decides to ride on a train in Louisiana. All right, simple enough. Louisiana had a law that blacks and whites had to ride in separate cars. They could not ride in the same car. You have a car that's labeled for whites only and a car that's labeled for blacks only. He could have gotten away with riding in the whites only car if he really wanted to just get away with it and be quiet and not challenge the law. He was only 1/8 black, which meant that he probably, and I couldn't find a picture of what he looked like, but he probably could have gotten away with it. He probably didn't look black. But the thing with Louisiana is that if you were at least 1/8 black, you were definitely considered black. It didn't matter the color of your skin. It was one of those things, is just a little bit of black and you're a black person. That was how they determined whether or not you were black. And he wanted to challenge this law. This was not an accident that he just happened to get on the wrong car, or it was a long day at work and he was just finding a seat. No, he got on this car with the intent to challenge the law. He wanted to get arrested. He wanted this court to go to trial. He wanted it to be the verdict that would overturn this law so that the law would change. And this is one of the ways that we make changes in this country. We make changes by having court cases, having them decided, and appealing them up to the Supreme Court if we need to. That's why the Supreme Court is one of our branches of government. All right, so he purchased a first-class ticket on the East Louisiana Railroad and sat in the whites-only section. He then stated to the conductor, he wasn't quiet about this, he said, "I'm 1/8 black," and then he refused to move himself from his seat. So he was asking for trouble, but in this case, trouble's good. He was working for change. He was arrested. He was tried. He was convicted in a Louisiana court. There was some kind of fine. I think it was a fine. He could pay a certain amount of money, or he could spend like 20 days in jail for the crime. But that wasn't the end of it. They didn't expect it to be the end of it. He was going to now challenge this. They appealed it and took it up to the Supreme Court. The lower court, the judge that ruled him guilty, was Judge John Howard Ferguson. He was a carpetbagger from the north who came down and became a judge. And because he was the judge in the lower court's case, the name of the case when it went to the Supreme Court was Plessy versus Ferguson. So a lot of people will ask, well, who's Plessy, who's Ferguson? Plessy was the black man who was defending his right to be equal, and Ferguson was the judge in the lower court that said that, no, you don't get to be in the same car as white people. All right, so he appealed it to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said, after they deliberated, they thought about it, they looked at the Constitution, they said, you know what? It does say that you have equal protection, equal rights, but you have something separate. It must be equal. So if you have a white train car and a black train car, you both have train cars. You both have equal access. And that was not unconstitutional. Well, as we know, not everything that is adding up to the same sum is equal. From this ruling, this basically gave the green light for southern states to make more laws of segregation. Now, segregation is separating something, taking things that are of one type and putting them on one side, and things of another type on another side. Segregation is inherently unequal because this is over here and this is over here. This is closer to the sink, this is closer to the sun. There's always all kinds of factors that are at play. They started seeing more laws saying that blacks and whites had to be separate in every part of their lives. Separate drinking fountains for blacks and whites. But they both have drinking fountains, so I guess if they're both getting water, it's equal. They can both go to a restaurant, but they have to sit in separate parts of the restaurant. You can both go to a theater, but the whites can walk in the front door and the blacks have to go around the back through the alley next to the dumpsters to come in the back door. It was all of these laws enforcing in the South to make sure that blacks and whites had different rankings, and whites always ended up with the better stuff. That was one of those things, and we can look at this later when we look at Brown versus Board of Education, where in 1954 they finally overturned this, which it was over 50 years later. They finally overturned Plessy versus Ferguson and ruled that by its very nature, anything that's separate cannot be equal. There are too many factors involved. Once you've got things separate, they are obviously not equal. So, to sum this up, 13th Amendment eliminated slavery. The 14th Amendment gave equal citizenship protections. But if the Supreme Court doesn't identify clearly what it means to be equal, then it's not going to enforce that equal protection clause. And that's where we're left standing at the end of the Civil War, at the end of Reconstruction. Now the South is taking a turn to put in laws of segregation. Have a good day, guys. Stay safe, stay healthy. You've got a couple of homework assignments to work on. I see you guys are doing well with that. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.